Alrighty, I think we're good to go ahead and get started. I'm gonna go ahead and introduce your two amazing speakers today. We have Taylor and Nancy. And with that said, I'm gonna go ahead and pass it off to Taylor and they'll go ahead and take y'all through it.
Awesome. Well, first of all, thank you all for being here. We are HR partners and we've started these webinars. We just want to be able to give back and we want to make sure that we're noting the most important topics that affect pretty much everyone, regardless of your industry here. So today we're going to be touching on retention and turnover. So we'll talk about, who's in the workforce, what they're looking for, touch on inflation, as I'm sure that's on everyone's mind. And just go over a lot of things that we hope you'll find very fruitful today and going forward. I am Taylor St. Clair, and we have Nancy Stevens here with us today as well. So we're thrilled to be here. So again, thank you. And I'm going to go ahead and kick it off to Nancy. And feel free to use the chat throughout. If you have any questions, you can submit those and we'll do our very best to get to them on the other side. Thank you all.
Hey everyone. We have all experienced losing a great team member despite our best efforts. It is critical that we plan for these situations so that we can address them proactively. And global issues, including the Great Resignation or reevaluation, and also the COVID-19 pandemic, have had significant impact for employers trying to maintain a solid team. And we want to make sure that you are ahead of the curve and instead of playing catch up. And as we see here, based on a recent survey in 2022, 50% of companies report employee turnover has been a major issue for the organization. So this is definitely something we want to address. All right, and the most significant impact to organizations is that replacing employees is costly with both time and revenue. And employees leaving can create skill gaps and also reduce the team morale. While turnover is inevitable, our goal is to always retain key players. And how does inflation impact the labor markets? Consumer prices rose 9.1% last year, a 41-year high, according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. And inflation has continued to spike since 2021. The negative impact is that real inflation-adjusted average hourly earnings fell 3.6% seasonally adjusted from June 2021 to June 2022. And again, this is according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. And just so you know, average hourly earnings measure the change in price that businesses pay for labor, and it doesn't really measure the wage cuts. And as the economy returns to normal, this abnormality is expected to disappear. And to counteract the deeper consumer prices from workers' paychecks and higher labor costs to the employer, we are seeing some organizations give increases throughout the year rather than waiting for a traditional annual increase. If employers are unable to increase wages, a one-time bonus can prove very valuable in showing recognition that the base pay is really not keeping up with inflation, while also showing value to the employee. And think about the cost of replacing an employee. Sometimes it may be less costly to give an existing solid performer an increase rather than having them leave. Of course, if you have an employee who is sour and ready to leave, then we really don't want to try to pressure them or ask them to stay.
Thank you. And so, yeah, just some things to kick off, get you thinking about, what we're looking at here, but it's also important to note who we are actually talking about when it comes to retaining these employees and when it comes to entering the market as well, because as of right now, there are 5 generations in the workforce. And millennials and Generation X are the most prominent, making up a 68% of the workforce. And so we also have, and these are in order, baby boomers, Generation Z, and the silent generation. And so as of right now, we're looking at Generation X and Y, who are also the millennials, taking over the baby boomer presence. And with this, a lot of priorities are changing, and I think we're seeing, these things happen. The market is changing as far as and what employees are expecting, what they want, their needs, and things like that. So we'll see this changing, and it's expected by 2025 that more millennials are expected to be in leadership positions than baby boomers, actually. So, 2025 really isn't that far away. So this is something, it is certainly a shift that's happening right now. And so we just kind of want to give you some information here and make sure that we know who it is out there and who we need to target going forward as well. So as far as, Generation X and millennials, like we said, they make up 68% of the workforce. So it's important to know what it is that they're looking for when they're out in the market, taking a look at your company. They're going to be looking for their jobs online. And I think this is something that's very, very normal now and expected. And also, these two generations in particular adapt well to technology and are good at creating a lot of original content. So very much just on an online presence here with these two groups. And they value brands that enhance their lives and align with their values. And they want more flexibility and a work-life balance. So these are big things I know that have been on our radar more likely than not, but just want to make sure that we're bringing that in. Now, there are some differences between these two as well. Generation X is going to be, they prefer clearly defined expectations, while millennials prefer clearly defined development paths. And, of course, these are things that ideally we want to be doing both of these options, and covering all these bases, because these differences don't necessarily cancel each other out. It's just kind of based on a preference. So all of these are things that we can be doing as a company to make sure that we're aware of. Generation X wants to know what the company is doing, what the company says is doing, and actually helping the client. So very much based on that follow through, making sure that what they're doing day to day, they know is what the client is expecting of them, and that the job is getting done. Millennials, on the other hand, want a sense of purpose to go along with that work. So it's kind of that that third dimension there that they want along with the job. And then just another thing about Generation X, they're very independent. I put latchkey kids here. So just something that's kind of part of that generation, part of growing up in, under those circumstances. And then millennials, and I think this is, something that we all are aware of, is a big association with millennials, is that pay is less taboo. Millennials are much more likely to talk to people about what they make, and they are not afraid to change jobs either. So, which is actually true with Generation X as well, not quite to the extent, but this is just becoming more common as we move along as far as changing jobs more often. All right. And then just to touch on some things, I'm sure that, we've all talked about COVID and the repercussions, but we just want to note, the layoffs were substantial. Of course, the turnover became a huge thing starting 2020, 2021 as well. And the working conditions got tough. We had a lot of hard situations that we went through. But some of these things are actually here to stay. Some of the things that COVID changed, especially with it still being a competitive market, The pay rates are becoming more and more available with the click of a mouse. You know, New York recently just added where they have to post the salary of the position online. And so this could be something that more states are going to take to follow as well, just to add to that pay transparency that is building. And then, of course, with the demands for more flexibility and for remote working environments, you know, I don't think is going away fully. You know, there are some people that are implementing a back to work, and there is some back and forth, but this is a big thing that people are going to be asking for, you know, in the process when they go to apply for the job or when they're having these interviews. So definitely something that you'll want to keep in mind. How are we being flexible to make sure that we're bringing in the key talent? And then, of course, we have more job openings than people out looking for jobs as well. So it's a very competitive market, and unemployment is low again. So this is something, you know, where we're having to reach out and make sure that we're being heard and we're being seen as a company, and that we are standing out. And then just the industries that are the most vulnerable to turnover right now, based on a survey, is going to be leisure, hospitality, retail, and manufacturing. So I know this is kind of a struggle across industries, but just these are the ones who have seen it the hardest.
All right, so we've given a lot of sobering information, and you may be asking yourself, so where do I start? Where do I go from here? We do have some strategies. First is to compile metrics and record keeping. To make sound decisions, we really need solid data. Ask for help from the experts with human resource professionals like us. We specialize in finding solutions for our clients. And ask your employees, consider an anonymous survey as well. This provides honest feedback on what is being done well and what can be improved. The key thing here is the importance of communicating with the team and acting when appropriate on the information that we receive. If we don't act on it, that could be perceived as a negative, and the team may feel like their feedback is unvalued. So it's definitely important to follow through on what we receive. We also want to evaluate why employees are leaving and correct those issues. It is great to understand why, but acting and implementing changes is where the value is. Dedicate yourself to understanding your employees and their needs. We know you guys are busy and this takes time and dedication, but we are very confident that that will pay off for you. Remember that it costs less to retain an employee than it does to replace one. Based on a report by the Society for Human Resources Management in 2022, it costs a company 6 to 9 months of an employee's salary to replace them. So for an example, if you have an employee who earns $60K a year, that equates to $30,000 to $45,000 in recruiting and training costs. So that's pretty substantial. And focus on perception of the company as being caring, understanding, and involved. That is so beneficial. And based on our extensive experience in supporting clients, we know that there are proven ways to retain a solid team. The first is recognition and respect. Those go such a long way, and it's low cost and really easy to do. The next is to focus on internal mobility, career development, and training. If we can develop the existing team we have, we will have a more stable and skilled group of key players. Conduct stay interviews and exit interviews, and really evaluate the information received to make necessary changes, but also provide positive feedback in areas of success. And also implement management training to reduce chances of a negative experience. Managers play such a critical role in an organization. And we have found that most the most common reason for an employee to resign is because of their direct manager. Oftentimes, managers will be promoted from within, and they never receive that necessary training that will allow them to be an effective leader. So we want to give them that opportunity. All right, and then also follow through with client service and mission statements to ensure you're doing what you say you are. Like Taylor said before, transparency is so valuable. We want to be sure that we don't lose sight of our overall vision and mission. Create a better work-life balance and flexible work solutions. This is where a survey and review of the stay interviews and exit interviews are so valuable by gleaning feedback from the team. And when in doubt, ask. Employee surveys are indispensable. It's always about balance. We know that you have a business to run, so we need to find that perfect point where the employer and employee meet. Like we said earlier, X's like clearly defined expectations, and Y's like clearly defined paths. So why not combine both so we meet both needs?
All right. And then again, so a big part of it is just creating a strategy, from starting. If we make this a priority when it comes to running our business and we're focused on, making sure that we're creating that work environment that we would want to have if we were an employee, then we just want to make sure that we have a strategy going forward. And this is going to be something that's very tailored to your industry, to your number of employees, to your priorities. So it's not a one size fits all. So it's always good to kind of just walk in with facts and then go from there. So this is something that's big, and I know we're giving a lot of information today, but just kind of a lot of information for you to brainstorm and figure out, hey, where do we start from here? And again, we always just have to keep in mind that compensation is available everywhere. And so we do want to be competitive in a way that we know for sure. And then we want to also complete regular check-ins with the team. It's very important to be seen, to ask those questions, to know that, hey, I've put this time aside for you, and I'm focused on you, and I'm asking questions. And that goes along with the respect and just building that environment and that culture. And then, of course, we want to remember pay equity. Pay equity is huge in bringing in new talent and retaining, because pay equity is, if you're trying to retain this high talent and you go in and you offer them the high top dollar amount to get them in the door, but you have, someone here who's been doing that same job and they didn't get a raise to meet this new person coming in. They've been there 2 years and now they're making less than this person who just walked in. So we certainly need to make sure that we're, making sure that we're offering everything as we should be, making sure that we have this equity in our team, because feeling underpaid, whether it's true or not, if you feel underpaid, then it correlates with intent to leave. So we definitely want to make sure that we're keeping that exactly how we want it to be and making sure that we're being as open as possible. And then, of course, with the millennials, again, some of the things that I said, I'm sure we've all heard. I'm sure it's all, left our own mouths from time to time. But we do just want to be careful with the self-fulfilling prophecy with millennials. Well, they're going to leave anyway. Well, they hop jobs anyway. Because this is something that could, just lead to that negative work environment. And if they hear you saying that, then it's more likely that they are going to feel that way, even if they didn't when they started. All right. And then it's important, I know, with the start of the year just coming, a lot of us just had our open enrollments and things like that. And it's very important to make sure that we're looking at our total benefits package every year. So when you hear benefits, everyone just thinks medical, dental, vision, you know, and then beyond that, short-term disability, long-term life insurance. But there's so much more, and there's so many other things that really do just build that culture, and really will, you know, give you that second look and really will elevate you above a lot of other companies. And there's no limit here as well. You know, you can go all out. And you can choose one from each category kind of thing. Again, this is going to be whatever works for you, your industry. But a big thing is going to be, you know, consider a hybrid or a remote schedule. Remote companies historically have a lower turnover rate. And so this is something that, you know, depends on your industry, but it is a big thing that people are looking for. Hybrid is a good way to, you know, kind of test the waters. If you have a team in place now that you're considering maybe allowing them to work remote, you know, we could help with developing policies or anything like that that would allow you to have a hybrid one day. Let's see if it works, you know, and if it doesn't, then hey, we tried. But it is important to be open-minded and understand what everyone's looking for walking in and what would help retain people here, you know, that may have stayed through the pandemic and things like that. Implementing an EAP is huge and becoming more common by the day. This is based on mental health. And mental health efforts are imperative, as it says here. I mean, it's huge, and this is something that is a relatively low cost per employee. You don't have to sign up for medical, dental, vision, all of that. You can just have the EAP. And these are going to be a number of free services that will allow your employees to call if they're in distress for mental health issues, financial issues. You know, these can be very, very broad in what they cover and can really just give your employees that sense of a better sense of mind. And then, of course, PTO and flexible schedules, always something to make sure that we're keeping up with the standard and that we're offering, you know, what we're comfortable with as well, because everything is a balance, but this is something that, you know, is huge and that's very important to people when they come into a new job. And then beyond that, it's just, you know, we have these small things. We don't want everyone to think that everything comes down to the paycheck. You know, there's a lot of different things that can add to the culture, you know, offer parking spots, gift cards, anniversary recognition that kind of goes along with the respect, you know, and it's something as, you know, as small as sending an email, getting a card, things like that, that could really just add to that recognition, make that employee feel seen. You know, raffles for event tickets, gift cards, you could always do. You know, anything that goes along with your industry maybe that makes sense. And then of course, like the gym memberships, phone stipends, things like that that we can add on that would add to that work-life balance and health overall. You know, phone stipends can add definitely to the bonus and like incentive package as well. And then, of course, you know, memberships, training opportunities, you know, mentorships. Mentorships don't cost a whole lot, you know, because you'll have someone that's already there, that's more seasoned, and then you have someone studying under them. That's a huge opportunity and something that could really change the game for the particular employee. And so these are things that, you know, that you can look to. Again, we encourage you to think outside the box and just make sure when you're thinking about your benefits every year, because you're required to think about them once a year, right? Well, we should, you know, just want you to think about them more than once a year, or at least broaden our scope when it does come that time every year. Make sure that we're thinking beyond just medical, dental, vision, and those options. And so the big takeaway here is that optimism is key. You know, I know we're we have a lot of things changing. We have the generational change. We had COVID. We have inflation talks now. Time feels like it's moving quickly. And so it's just very important to keep that optimistic attitude, and resilience is key. I mean, that's what we do. We're business owners. We run these businesses day to day. So we know resilience, you know, and it's mainly just we're here and sharing this information just to help you, you know, keep up, because we know that you're working hard every single day. And so there is a survey here recently on a benchmark report by Criteria that says, despite the challenges of inflation, high turnover, layoffs, you know, all these things, 78% of respondents expect growth this year. And confidence in hiring is high as well. 37% feel very confident, and 43% feel at least a little confident. And so you'll see here that the scale breaks it down by industry as well. But 78%, I mean, that's huge. And it is the human condition, you know, as well. So I think that we have to look forward. And as 2023, you know, it's a brand new year as well. So I know that this year we're, you know, already getting our goals together for 2023 and such. So I think it's a good time just to kind of think about a lot of these different variables. But at the end of the day, hey, we made it to 2023. All right. And so this is what we have for you all today. We definitely could, you know, take a very deeper dive into this information. Again, like we said, a lot of these are going to be tailored to you and your specific needs and what you're looking for, the troubles, the particular issues that you might be having, retaining or finding new talent. And so I'm going to send out a poll here just to gauge some interest. If anyone's interested in maybe taking a deeper dive and touching on more resources that are available to you. And just, I mean, because we could talk about this for weeks. So we just kind of want to make sure that we're touching the things, getting your brain moving, making sure that we're thinking about all these items. I am going to go ahead and just send out this poll for everyone to be looking at. And then we are also going to have a Q&A section. I'm going to let Sydney go ahead and take that away.
Yes, thank you so much, Taylor and Nancy, for that amazing information. I hope everyone got a little bit of a nugget of information to take back and apply to their team and business. Again, yeah, the Q&A section is where you enter in your questions. We could probably spend a week on this topic alone. So if you have any questions or obviously the deeper dive in the poll, we'll reach out to you. And then I'll wait to see if there's any more questions, and we can get started on answering. All right, we've already got a few, so maybe we'll go ahead and get started. I'll go ahead and start off with the first one. If raises are not currently an option, we want to provide bonuses. What's the best method you recommend for calculating these bonuses? Should it be based on performance or something else?
We are big believers in bonuses being given only when they are based on specific measurements and performance. It is important for employees to know how they qualify and what they need to do to receive their bonus. We see a lot of companies not documenting the details, and that can lead to a lot of frustration instead of the intended positive effect, because the employees don't understand what they need to do to reach that goal.
All right, awesome. And the second question, what actions can I do to counteract inflation other than foregoing annual raises and or reviewing pay rates and bonuses more often to meet competitive labor market?
And a lot of businesses are raising their fees to help offset. We recognize that there is still the need to be competitive in the market. We encourage businesses to look at additional benefits that employees want, and we can find this information out through a survey. That's more important, that's better than guessing, right? And so some things would be additional time off, a growth sharing bonus, where as the company grows, the employees are eligible for a bonus. So there are a lot of options that we can talk about.
Awesome. Third one, what are some ways or tools to increase my team culture?
So big ones are going to be things like surveys or just things that we're making sure the whole team does together. It's important to make sure everyone feel like they belong and understood and actually are immersed in that group content. So you could always like read a book together and discuss. We have, different personality quizzes and things like that, the Myers-Briggs or the DISC assessment that you can take. And it just helps everyone kind of understand the differences instead of, or from a different point of view, I suppose. So lots of different things like that.
All right, awesome. Got another one, where to find sample team surveys? Where would someone find the sample team surveys?
We'll be happy to talk with anyone about that if they want to reach out to us directly.
Follow up on that one later. And then we have, do you recommend increasing the pay for someone who is underperforming or has an attitude?
No, I think it's important to make sure that we're looking at what they're adding to the team and whether it's adding something positive or they could be adding something negative to the team as well. So if this is something that, if this employee might be affecting the culture negatively or, they have already soured, I think like it was mentioned earlier, then it may just be time to kind of go ahead and trim.
All right, awesome. Sorry, are you all good?
You're good, thank you.
All right, and then where do you find the best candidates?
The most important thing is multiple resources. Yeah.
And I love ZipRecruiter. I think they are great because they just have a broad umbrella that they fall under. Their costs have recently risen, so they're a little expensive. And other great resources indeed. Both of those options are great. And you have different options that you can tailor based on your needs. So you can post free ads and not pay anything for Indeed, although ZipRecruiter now charges. But and if you need a role filled quickly or you're not finding the candidates that you need, there are options to pay additional money to have your ads viewed better by employees, prospective candidates. And it's really industry based. So again, if you guys need any assistance, we'll be happy to talk through it with you.
Awesome. Do we have time for one more question or should we go ahead and wrap it up?
We'll take one more.
So yeah, we have, do you think stay interviews are effective at maintaining staff?
Most definitely. So I think the big thing here is that we want it ideally performed by a neutral third party to make sure that we have that transparency, that these questions are being answered, in an honest manner as well. We also recommend doing them often. That kind of goes along with those check-ins, those regular check-ins and the surveys and things like that, we recommend as well. So just make sure that we're touching as we go at, certain milestones after a month, after a quarter, after a year, all of these items. So just important to do yes and often.
Awesome. All right. If you didn't get your question answered, I think we might be good for today. We will be sending up a follow-up email with how you can view a copy of this presentation. So watch in your email box and make sure you mark those emails from us as safe, as they might get stuck in your junk folder if not.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for being here for our first webinar in 2023. We look forward to many more to come, and please feel free to reach out to us with any questions that you all may have based on the information today, or of course, any recommendations on topics that you'd like us to touch in the future. We're always open, and we want to make sure that we're talking to you about the things that you want to hear about. So thank you all so much.
Thank you, everyone.